So here's my promise to you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share something that I believe is a message, not from me, but through me, for wherever you are right now, whether you're exhausted, whether you're afraid, whether you've been praying for something for so long you've almost stopped believing it'll come, whether you're sitting in a parking lot right now because you needed 5 minutes alone before you walked back into a house, a job, a life that feels heavier than you can carry. I see you, and I think God does too. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you might be the thing you've been waiting to hear. Let me take you back to a moment in my own life. I don't share this often, but I think today it matters. There was a season, and if you've lived long enough, you know exactly what I mean when I say a season, where everything felt like it was falling apart at once. Not one thing, everything. The job that wasn't working out, the relationship that was fraying at the edges, the bills stacking up on the kitchen counter like a tower I refused to look at, and underneath all of it, this quiet, persistent voice whispering, "You're behind, you're failing, you're alone in this." I remember one particular night. It was late, past midnight, and I was sitting on the edge of my bed in the dark, not crying exactly, just empty, hollowed out, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix because it's not your body that's tired, it's your soul. And I remember whispering, almost angry, almost desperate, "If you're really there, say something, anything, because I don't know how much more of this I can do on my own." And here's the thing, nobody tells you about moments like that. God doesn't always answer with thunder. Sometimes he answers with stillness. Sometimes he answers with a memory that surfaces out of nowhere, a verse you forgot you ever knew, a feeling of peace that makes absolutely no logical sense given your circumstances. That night, a verse came to me. I hadn't read it in years. Psalm 34:18. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Not far from the brokenhearted, close, closer than I'd ever imagined. And something shifted in me. Not my circumstances, those didn't change that night. The bills were still there in the morning. The job was still hard, but something inside me changed. I wasn't carrying it alone anymore, and that realization became the thread that carried me through everything that came after. I tell you that story because I think some of you are in that exact room tonight. Maybe not literally, but emotionally. Sitting on the edge of something, a decision, a diagnosis, a goodbye, a beginning, and wondering if anyone, anywhere, sees what you're going through. I want to pause here and just say something directly to you because I believe it with my whole heart. You are not invisible. Not to him. Never to him. Here's something I think most of us forget, especially in seasons of struggle, namely we tend to measure God's presence by how good things are going. If life is smooth, we say, God is so good. But if life gets hard, some quiet part of us starts to wonder if he's stepped back, if he's disappointed, if we did something to push him away. But that's not who God is. That's not what Scripture shows us, not even once. Look at Joseph, sold by his own brothers, lied about, thrown into a prison cell for a crime he didn't commit. Years of his life taken from him unjustly. And yet Genesis tells us again and again, through every single one of those dark chapters, the Lord was with Joseph, not the Lord rescued Joseph immediately, not the Lord made it all make sense right away. The Lord was with him in the pit, in the prison, in the waiting. I think that's the part of the story we skip over too fast because we want the happy ending. We want chapter 50, where Joseph stands before his brothers as the most powerful man in Egypt and says, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." That's the verse we put on coffee mugs. But we forget he had to live through chapters 37 through 49 first. He had to live through the betrayal, the slavery, the false accusation, the forgotten promise of the cellmate who said he'd remember him and didn't for 2 more years. And through every single one of those chapters, God didn't leave. I want you to sit with that for a second because I think it changes everything about how we read our own story. Maybe you're not in chapter 50 right now. Maybe you're in chapter 39 and it feels like the pit, and it feels like nobody remembers you, and it feels like the promise got lost somewhere along the way. I want to gently tell you something, and I need you to really hear it, not just read it. You are not forgotten. Let me tell you about someone I met a few years back. I won't use her real name. I'll just call her Maria, because her story isn't mine to fully tell, but the shape of it has stayed with me ever since. Maria was a single mother, working 2 jobs, and she told me once that the hardest part wasn't the exhaustion. It was the silence. The way nobody asked her how she was actually doing because everyone assumed she had it handled. She told me she used to sit in her car in the driveway for 10 minutes before going inside, just to breathe, just to gather enough strength to walk through that door and be mom again. And she told me that one night, sitting in that very driveway, she whispered the same kind of prayer I had whispered on the edge of my bed. God, if you're there, I need you to show me somehow. And the next morning, a co-worker she barely knew handed her a folded piece of paper with a verse written on it, Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. The co-worker had no idea what Maria had prayed the night before, no idea about the driveway, the silence, the exhaustion, but God knew, and he used a stranger's hand to remind her she wasn't alone. I share that because I think God still works that way, through co-workers, through strangers, through a video you almost scrolled past tonight. Now here's something that might surprise you, something I didn't understand for years, and honestly it changed the way I read the entire Bible once I finally saw it. We tend to think of faith as this giant dramatic leap, parting seas, raising the dead, walking on water, the big stuff, the cinematic stuff. But when you actually go back and read Scripture closely, most of the real turning points in people's lives didn't start with something massive. They started small, almost embarrassingly small. Moses wasn't called at the burning bush with a trumpet blast and an army behind him. He was called while doing the most ordinary thing in the world, tending sheep on the backside of a desert. He probably knew better than his own house. Gideon wasn't found leading troops. He was found hiding in a wine press, threshing wheat in secret because he was terrified. David wasn't anointed king on a battlefield. He was out in a field, the youngest, the overlooked one, the one nobody even bothered calling in from the pasture when Samuel first asked to see Jesse's sons. God keeps showing up in the small, overlooked, unimpressive moments of people's lives, and I really believe he's still doing that today. Not just in burning bushes and battlefields, but in laundry rooms, in car rides home from work, in the 60 seconds you've given me right now. So let me ask you something, gently, and I want you to actually answer it in your own heart, not just keep scrolling past it. What is it you've been carrying alone? Maybe it's grief that nobody around you fully understands because they didn't know the person you lost the way you knew them. Maybe it's fear about your health or your child's health that you haven't said out loud to anyone because saying it makes it more real. Maybe it's shame, something from your past that you think disqualifies you from ever being fully loved, fully forgiven, fully free. I want to tell you something about that shame because I think it's one of the heaviest things we carry and one of the most unnecessary. There's a story in the Gospel of John, the woman caught in adultery, dragged into the public square, thrown at the feet of Jesus by a crowd of men holding stones, ready to execute the law to the letter. And Jesus doesn't lecture her. He doesn't even immediately speak. He bends down and writes in the dust. And then he says one sentence that has echoed through 2,000 years of human history. Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone. And one by one, they leave. The oldest first. Funny, isn't it, that the oldest left first, maybe because they had the longest list of their own failures to remember. And then it's just her, standing there, exposed, expecting judgment. And Jesus looks at her and says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin." not go and feel ashamed forever, not go and never come back here, go and leave it behind. I think a lot of us are still standing in that circle, holding our own stones, throwing them at ourselves over and over again for things God let go of a long time ago. And I just want to say to you, if that's you right now, whatever it is, whatever you did, whatever was done to you that you blame yourself for, He is not holding it against you. The stones have already fallen from His hands. The only ones still holding stones might be us. I want to pause here because I told you I'd give you something unexpected, and here it is. We talk about God's love like it's this soft, gentle, almost passive thing, a warm blanket, a nice feeling. But that's not actually what the Bible shows us. Love in Scripture is fierce. It's relentless. It's a shepherd leaving 99 sheep in the open field, not safely penned up, in the open field, exposed to wolves, to go chase down the one that wandered off. That's not a calm, comfortable love. That's a love that runs, that searches in the dark, that doesn't stop until it finds you. Luke 15 says it plainly. When He finds it, He joyfully puts it on His shoulders and goes home. Not drags it home in frustration, not lectures it the whole way back about how it shouldn't have wandered off in the first place. Joyfully carries it, celebrates. I think some of us have spent so long believing we have to clean ourselves up before we're allowed to come home that we've forgotten. The running started before we ever turned around. The father in the story of the prodigal son doesn't wait at the door with his arms crossed. Luke 15:20 says, "While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him, while he was still a long way off, before the apology was finished, before the explanation, before the son even got the words, 'I am no longer worthy to be called your son,' all the way out of his mouth. The father was already running. I think that's who God is. Not someone waiting at a distance for you to get it together. Someone already running toward you while you're still a long way off, while the mess is still all over you, while the shame is still fresh. And here's what I really want you to hear. However long we've been together now, that running father, that's not a metaphor for someday. That's not for after you fix yourself. That's for right now, tonight, this morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are watching this. Let me bring you back to something practical, something real, because I don't want this to just be beautiful words that fade the second the video ends. If you're walking through something right now, and I think most of you watching this are, I want to give you something to actually hold on to, not a feeling, a practice. In the original language of the Old Testament, there's this beautiful word, Hesed. It doesn't translate cleanly into English. We usually render it loving kindness or steadfast love, but it's richer than that. It's covenant love, loyal love, the kind of love that shows up even when, especially when, you haven't earned it and can't repay it. Lamentations. Chapter 3. In the middle of a book that is honestly one long lament, one long cry of grief over the destruction of everything the writer loved, suddenly breaks into this. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. New every morning, not new once at the beginning and then you're on your own. New every morning, which means whatever happened yesterday, the mistake, the breakdown, the thing you said you wouldn't do again and did anyway, this morning, His mercy is new again, not recycled, not, well, I already used up my grace on you yesterday. New. I want you to actually think about what that means for you, specifically today. Whatever weight you walked into this video carrying, it doesn't disqualify you from this moment. It doesn't disqualify you from new mercy. It doesn't disqualify you from being found by a Father who runs. Let me tell you about another moment. This one from years before the night on the edge of my bed. I was younger then, maybe in my 20s, and I remember sitting in the back pew of a small church, not really listening to the sermon, just turning over a piece of guilt in my mind like a stone in my pocket. something I had done, nothing dramatic by the world's standards, but to me, in that season, it felt unforgivable. And the pastor, almost as if he could see straight into the pew where I was sitting, said something I have never forgotten. He said, "Some of you are still paying for a debt that was already canceled 2,000 years ago on a hill outside Jerusalem." I didn't cry in that moment. I just sat there, stunned, the way you feel when something true lands on you all at once. Colossians 2:14 says God canceled the charge of our legal indebtedness, nailing it to the cross. Canceled, not postponed, not reduced, canceled. I think about that pastor's words often, especially on nights when the guilt creeps back in, when I start paying on a debt that was already wiped clean. And I wonder, honestly, if you're doing the same thing right now, carrying around a ledger that God tore up a long time ago. Now, here's something I have to be honest with you about, because I promised you something real, not just something pretty. This isn't a magic formula. I'm not telling you that if you watch this video, say a prayer, and feel a little warm feeling in your chest, all your problems disappear by morning. That's not how this works, and honestly, I think that kind of promise does more harm than good, because when the bills are still there and the diagnosis is still real and the relationship is still broken, people feel like their faith failed, or worse, like God failed them. That's not what I'm offering you. What I'm offering you is something Paul wrote from inside an actual prison cell, not a metaphorical one, a real one, chains and all fee, in his letter to the Philippians. I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. He didn't say, I learned how to escape my circumstances. He said, I learned to be content whatever the circumstances. That's not the absence of struggle. That's the presence of strength inside the struggle. I think about Paul writing those words, chained to a Roman guard, uncertain whether he'd live or die, and somehow finding the steadiness to write about contentment, not because his situation was good, it wasn't, but because he had learned, slowly, painfully, over years of hardship, where his strength actually came from, not from his circumstances changing, from someone walking through the circumstances with him. That's what I think God is offering you right now in this very moment. Not necessarily an instant rescue from everything that's hard, but his presence inside the hard, his strength inside your weakness, his nearness inside your loneliest moment. I want to say one more thing here because I think it matters more than almost anything else in this video. If you've ever wondered whether you have to earn your way back to God, whether there's a certain number of good days or clean months or perfect prayers you have to rack up before he'll really listen to you, I want to gently tell you that's not how grace works. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, "For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." A gift, not a wage, not a reward for good behavior, a gift, freely given, to people who, by every fair measure, hadn't earned it. That includes me. That includes you. And I want to tell you, I really believe this, that 60 seconds you gave me at the start of this video, that wasn't really for me. I think somewhere along the way, while you were listening, it became something between you and him. And I don't think that was an accident either. So, let me ask you gently, before we get to the end of this together, what do you feel right now? Sitting with everything we've talked about, the running Father, the new mercy every morning, the God who was with Joseph in the pit before he ever reached the palace. What is stirring in you? I'd genuinely love to know if something in this touched a place in you, a memory, a hope, a tear you didn't expect. Write it in the comments. Tell me where you are right now. Tell me what you're walking through or what you're walking toward. I read every single one, and I think there's something powerful about a community of strangers who become, even just for a moment, family, holding each other up in the comment section of a video at midnight when nobody else is awake to talk to. So before we close, I want to leave you with this. If you've made it this far with me, I don't think that was random, and I don't think it was wasted. I believe, and I say this with everything I have, that wherever you are tonight, whatever you're afraid of, whatever you've been praying for so long you've nearly given up on it, God hasn't forgotten you. He's not far off, waiting for you to clean yourself up first. He's running toward you right now, while you're still a long way off. Psalm 35 says, "Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning." I don't know what night you're in, but I know mornings come. They always come. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Not for me, for you. Take one more minute after this video ends. Don't scroll to the next thing immediately. Just sit for 1 minute in silence and say whatever's on your heart. It doesn't have to be eloquent. It doesn't have to sound like a prayer you've heard before. Just be honest. He's not looking for perfect words. He's looking for you. And if this reached you today, if even one sentence in here found its way into a place in your heart that needed it, please consider subscribing so that the next time you need a 60-second reminder that you are not alone, it'll be right here waiting for you. Share this with someone who might need to hear it tonight too. You never know whose midnight you might be lighting up. Thank you for giving me your 60 seconds. I have a feeling it was worth more than that. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, you are seen, you are loved, and you are not alone.